Hi guys and welcome to Tactics, the Lorcana Tactics channel on YouTube. My name is Basti and I would like to share a deck with you that I've been working on for the last, I would say 10 to 12 months. It's a broom focused deck called Broom Service, and I'm really convinced that this Amethyst Steel alternative concept has reached A tier level by now. I've participated in a set championship during the last weekend where I made the 3rd place or 30 players, and I also gonna have a second tournament this weekend. So I'm totally happy to share the current state of the deck, which is pretty much the final state for set 6 with you. And I hope you're as excited as I am regarding this broom powerhouse. Without any further to say, let's jump into Dreamborn and have a closer look. All right, so let's start with the hard facts of the deck. It's a Steel Amethyst deck, which is kind of mid-rangey, I would say, but has strong tendencies towards an aggro, but also control aspect that we'll explain later to you. It has 62 cards, of which 16 are uninkable, which is the perfect number in my eyes. And as you can see from the cost curve, we're totally below 5 cost cards. So each and every card is between 1 to 4 ink costs. You can see that the split is more dominant for Amethyst with 38 versus 24 against Steel. And then, as said, we have 16 uninks, and a major benefit of the deck is that it's 50 characters in there. So cards like Ursula that are searching your hand for songs that just don't hit, as well as other cards, because we only have 6 actions, 3 songs, and 3 locations in there. This already shows the tendency of the deck to flood the board, to take board control with weenie characters, and to just quest on without the opponent having a chance to stop it. Because on the other hand, the draw of this deck is pretty much the best draw I've ever seen. If you look at the single cards and characters, the very much core and centerpiece of the deck are the 4 Amethyst 1-drops, the famous Chernobog's Followers, which can be sacrificed after questing for drawing a card. Then Diablo, which is giving you a card whenever he's banished in any way. And the Magic Brooms, obvious choice for Broom deck, which can be banished when you play another character in order to draw a card. These 12 cards are, as said, the centerpiece because they are early questers. They bring in constant 1 lore, and they are pretty much staying under the radar of the opponent and are not being challenged as much as they probably should be. So on the other hand, they are constantly replenishing your hand with new cards because you obviously banish them in a smart way in order to not give the opponent a chance to remove them the way how he wants to remove them, but always with the purpose to draw more cards. Bounce package is also an important key feature of the deck, which is the reason why we do have 2 snakes in here. It's not 4 snakes because 2, honestly speaking, is enough. We do have the foxes and other opportunities, like for example the Yen Sit for bounces. So I took the snakes because this is the cheapest bounce for 2 ink cost and it's still inkable. So we could apply the bounce effect of the Mother Mim both on 1-drop characters in order to play them out in a ready state again, or on our questing machines, for example, like Mr. Smee and Lawrence, as soon as they have taken damage and must be protected. Or we could use it on Yen Sit or on Doc in order to get our draw characters back on hand and to just replay them for more card draw. Yen Sit is another obvious choice when it comes to Broom deck because this guy is a powerhouse. He is fulfilling the purpose of drawing cards, and he's always on the board waiting for the time where you play the second Broom in order to send him out for a quest of 3 lore. And because of his willpower of 3, he can also just quest for 1 and still survive a potential challenge by some of the major characters that other decks are playing. So I'm pretty much in love with him. He's always been a centerpiece of my Brooms decks that I've been building so far. A very important character is Kaloon because she is basically the antidote to each and every hyper-aggro deck that you might play against. We're going to focus on matchups a little bit later, but Kaloon is obviously the best choice against hyper-aggro, while still bringing in lore, because whenever she is banishing a character in a challenge during your turn, she's giving you 2 additional lore, which is totally perfect for this kind of deck setup. Doc is the most important card when it comes to the draw engine because obviously you always keep him in hand, play him as soon as your hand is empty already, and just redraw 2 cards. And when you bounce him back with the snake, the fox, or other cards that we see in a second, you can play him again for the next card draw. The Magic Broom Area Cleaner is the second broom in the deck, and he is there for the purpose of just being a stable body with willpower 3 and for being able to take out evasive characters, traditionally Diablos, for example, or when you combine him with a Merlin Crab, you could also get rid of genies. One criticism that is fair to say is when you ask me, is this a broom deck? If you only play 8 broom characters and 4 Yen sits, so in total it's like 12 cards that are focused on the broom topic or broom theme, I would reply that these characters are so essential for the deck that it can definitely be called a broom deck. And as it is playing in a totally different way than all other Amethyst Steel decks, I'm also convinced that it's fair to put it under the broom umbrella still. Mr. Smee is one of the characters that can quest for 2, which is important because with this deck we want to keep the questing pressure as high as possible. We want to quest whenever possible with the highest amount of lore, so he's the obvious choice for Steel players. And the spicy choice in the deck, a card that has been kind of forgotten for the last set, so to say, also by myself, is Arthur the Wizard Apprentice, because he's fulfilling several benefits at the same time. On one hand, he has, again, willpower of 3. You can see this is a repetitive thing in the deck in order to stay protected against Steelstone decks, for example. So he can't be banished just by Fire the Cannon or by a Baboon. Then, on the other hand, he's able to quest. Okay, that's for sure, but when he does so, he can apply a bounce effect, and you have already seen how important the bounce effects are for our draw engine, and you get an additional 2 lores for doing so. So it's kind of a gaining wisdom integrated into the body of this Arthur. He can be brawled for sure, but the opponent usually likes to keep the brawls against the Yen Sits and other characters, so Arthur is also quite often staying under the radar or joining the game at a time where all brawls are gone, and then the opponent must decide in order if they want to play a Medusa on Arthur, which is quite overpaid in my opinion. So it's a brilliant card for the deck. We do have 4 foxes in there, and there's no discussion about the foxes because the fox in my eyes is the best card in Lorcana, applying all these positive effects of having a strength of 4 in order to remove things that are nasty with rush so the opponent can't act against. Still, it is quite stable with 3 willpower. It bounces something back in order to save it and has the potential to turn the pace against the opponent, taking a character out, and then, if you do it smartly, being able to stay on the board with another 4 strength challenge, either initiated by the opponent or by yourself on the next turn, and he's again able to quest. It's just the most perfect card for Amethyst in my eyes, so 4 times, 4 copies in there. Merlin is part of the removal package, as I would like to call it, together with Kaloon. Merlin and Fox, these are the characters that take care of removals, for example against hyper-aggro, but also against locations. Quite versatile in order to just boost the power of a character and in order to get rid of stuff. And if you apply it on Kaloon to, again, take additional 2 lore with strength of 6, which is insane. Lawrence was one of my favorite Steel cards from set 2 on. I already loved the guy back then, but he has always been kind of forgotten until the last, I would say, like 5 to 6 months, where he's joining Steel decks all over the world. So he's in there 3 times, and just for obvious reason, it's a 4/4 body that quests for 2. And the little negative downturn that he's losing strength after being hit, that's fine for me. I want him to quest, and I want him to give a first initial strike if possible. So a totally cool card in the deck. Genie. I have excluded, or have been excluding Genie for the longest time while I was building the deck, because he is not perfectly fitting the pace of the deck. I would always prefer 2 1-drops against 1 Genie, because it's just more versatile to play these characters. And a Genie which costs 4 and is uninkable is carrying quite some intense resources that I must pay in order to get him on the table, and then he can be removed by a brawl as well. So I do see all the advantages, obviously, drawing card, 2 quest evasive, but it is dangerous to play him in such a deck, which is why he's only in there twice, 2 copies of Genies. Merlin Goat is like the Fox, not to be discussed in any way, just the perfect card to apply unavoidable pressure on the opponent, especially when the game is in the mid-state or the late state of the game. Nothing more to say, brilliant card, also in combination with the bounce package, obviously. The removal package is then completed by 7 actions / songs, which is twice Fire the Cannons, 2 Babooms, and 3 Then Along Came Zeus. With these cards, I focus on removing the stuff that is really important for the opponent, which, for example, could be a Maui that has challenged the character and has already taken damage. Then with Fire the Cannons, I get rid of him, or with Baboom. Zeus solves a lot of issues called, for example, Maui Half Shark, Clarabellis, and all the other 5 willpower characters or even locations that are pretty sticky in the board and hard to remove for an Amethyst Steel player. When we look at the matchups, I will also explain which cards I keep in hand against which in combination. Befuddle. Befuddle is just so brilliant in this deck, and I've been discussing that with Spessy, who is also a fan of the Baby Maleficent, which I had in here for a very long time and then decided against to play it. But Befuddle, we agree, is just brilliant because of the versatility, the flexibility that comes along with the card. You could slow down the opponent, bounce something back from him, especially if it's a 2-cost character in turn 2. Or you could, and this is something I love to do, just bounce back your dog, your injured Smee, your injured Kaloon, or Yensid for another card draw or another quest for 3 with him. This card just doesn't have any limits when it comes to solving issues and problems, and it can be put into ink in the worst case. So 2 copies in there. I was thinking about a 3rd one, but I ended up with 2. I'm pretty happy with the state right now. And then the final card, 3 copies of Library, and it has beaten all other options. For example, the Broom Tower that lets your Broom quests for 2. Is a nice card, but it's very situational, so I have decided against it. Castle is pretty much dead at the moment because it can be removed too easily by Ruby, so I don't want to play it anymore. And also by Amethyst with crabs and foxes. So it's just too much of a glass location, so to say. And Library with willpower 8, the lore 1 each turn, and then the opportunity to put your 1-drops in there, sacrifice them deliberately, and draw cards out of it without the opponent being able to avoid it because you play Library in mid to late game to do so. It's just the brilliant last card that was needed in order to make this deck very performant. So having said a brief sentence regarding each and every single card, I would like to focus on the Mulligan. What is neutrally seen the best Mulligan that you could achieve with this deck without taking into consideration the ink combination that the opponent is playing? I am always extremely happy when I draw 1 up to 3 1-drops for my starting hand. So if I have a follower, Diablo, and a Magic Broom, I might keep those if I'm on the play and I'm starting the round, because then I can just play the first one in the first round and the second and the third one in the second round, and I can already start thinking about how to quest, how to banish these guys in order to transfer them to cards, potentially even combined with an early library. So up to 3 1-drops, totally fine for me. I love to keep a dog in hand after Mulligan, just in order to keep the card engine running. If I want to quest fast, and I know I just don't want to connect it to matchups at the moment, but a Smee is something that is always of value that I like to keep, but even more valuable are a fox and a crab. 2 to 3 1-drops, fox, crab, dog, and potentially, just in order to solve problems, a Fire the Cannon or a Baboom are a pretty nice start to the game. That is something that I would always love to keep if I don't know what the opponent is playing. Looking at the matchups, let's start with Steel Song, which is a horrible matchup, neutrally seen when you play with this deck against it, because you must be extremely focused on each and every step. If you play against Steel Song, 1 mistake from your side kills it all. You must place your 1-drops very carefully, banish them before they can be targeted with any kind of ping damage, get Fire the Cannon or Baboom into the early hand in order to get rid of the baby Cinderella, which is a pain when she starts singing Let the Storm Rage On, or in order to just ping on the Daisy when she starts questing. So it's always important to find out as soon as possible if it's a pure Steel Song or a Steel Song hybrid aggro deck. Because against a pure Steel Song, I will always keep these damage actions in order to get rid of the singers and their resources that they carry. And when I play against an hybrid aggro Steel Song version, I would always keep a fox or a Kaloon and a baby broom, so that I can hit the first damage with the baby broom on Daisy and then get rid of him with either Callan or with Madame Mim Fox. I usually let Daisy quest twice in order to draw 2 cards. As you remember, I have 50 characters in there, so that's kind of a passive draw engine for me that I like to use. But then I just must stop Daisy from questing, which is the reason why I need these guys. Also, Crab helps here a lot in order to defeat opposing Lawrences, for example, on worst case big Cinderellas that see gameplay currently. So any combination of Crab, Fox, Zeus, etc. is needed against Steel Song. And it is basically a setup where you have to hit them every single turn, get 1 or 2 lore in without being too risky, withdraw, wait what is happening, take the punches that you can't avoid. You will get Strength of Raging Fires, you would get Let the Storm Rage On, and you just must be aware that you always have characters on the board that can handle these damages. So Mr. Smee is a card that I wouldn't play against Steel Song because he's just too glassy here. But a card like Lawrence might be fun because I'm still happy if he's a 0/4 character and he's been sucking away a Strength of Raging Fire beforehand. So it is a long setup. You must be very focused, and the target is to make the Steel player or the Steel Song player lose all his cards and having a stronger redraw than he does, so that he's forced to play the whole new world at a point in the game where it's like maybe something like 6 to 10 in your favor, so that the whole new world is giving you the boost that you need in order to close down the game. For example, I don't know, 1 or 2 goats, some bibs, another Lawrence, or stuff he just can't avoid to go on a quest. So very difficult. I don't like to play the matchup, but it's something that I was able to win in the first championship also 2-0. So it's a 50-50 thing, I would call it. Looking at Ruby Sapphire, I mean, that's the most important matchup probably currently because everyone is hyped on it. When I play against Ruby Sapphire, and I do know it's a Pirate Life approach, kind of a modern mid-rangey way to play it, like Kang DKP did it, for example, also in Australia, then I focus on questing as fast as possible. I want to have my potentially 3 1-drops in order to get a foot on the board, or 1-drop and a Smee, followed by a Lawrence, and just quest. A Kaloon potentially, if I know they are playing queens. I must also take care of the rush queens with my 1-drop so that I do not let them get banished by an unexpected rush queen, and I just go on a quest whenever I can. I do not care. It's very important to reach a lore amount of 16 as soon as possible, because as soon as Pirate Life starts, or as soon as Maui Hive Shark is out there, your questing rhythm changes, because everything that quests on your side must be banished for a new card or must be bounced back in order not to give a target for Maui Shark. And therefore you must have reached a stable amount up to like 16 lore in late mid-game in order to be able to close the game. Usually it works if you do not play any mistake, and if you play around Be Prepared, because against Ruby players, as soon as it is Be Prepared time, you just banish your 1-drops for new cards, and then you tactically place 2 characters, sometimes 3, depending on your redraw on the board, and send them on a quest, get Be Prepared, play a dog again, play another character, take another Be Prepared, and you usually are able to have more characters coming back than the opponent has removals. That is the way how to then close the game. In general, the whole deck functions around a smart play of dogs, the Sits, and the 1-drops. If you play them smart, you always have cards in hand. You never go top deck, and you are always able to push 2 characters to the table, take them back by banishing, getting new cards, and giving the opponent just no target for the stuff that they want to do. Next setup, let's do Emerald Steel short, which is this card, not being played that majorly at the moment, but against this setup, obviously we want to have those cards on hand in order to punish an aggressive Diablo play. Also, if you just bounce the shifted Diablo back, that's painful. Shoot them down completely is obviously always the best choice. Take care of coves if there is the chance that the Diablo gets more willpower by coves. That's important to keep in mind. And keep the area cleaner brooms, potentially keep a genie, and then play smartly around the discard effect, because what I like to do against this deck is play quite an amount of cards on the board so that the opponent doesn't have the chance to discard me, and then I banish my 1-drops back for card draw and play the new cards again. So it's kind of a different setup here. You don't want to hold any cards in hands, for example, in order not to give draw to the opponent by Prince John. But all in all, this setup has become easier with set 6, and I'm happy to play against it. Hyper-aggro. Hyper-aggro transferring to Amber Amethyst or to Amber Emerald is my favorite matchup with this deck, because this is an anti-hyper-aggro deck, if you have not already realized it. We do have so many options in order to profit from early daisies by taking their draw, then getting rid of them with Cullens, with Foxes, with Crabs, and with the shooting range that we have, that usually the hyper-aggro player runs out of board control and cards quite early around turn 4 to 5. And they are also not able to really quest before, because you keep them down by shooting and bouncing. So unfortunately, I've actually lost the semi-final of the set championship against an hyper-aggro Amber Amethyst deck, which was an extremely close game, and it was the most aggressive way you could play this color combination. And I lost in the 3rd game because of a top deck Rose, which is the normal way. It's always getting very, very close, but usually against Amber Amethyst, I am ahead 1 or 2 lore in the end, and this time I was top decked by Rose, which is fair, that happens. I was lucky in other games before where I top decked the goat, so yeah, I lost this one, but usually I would say this has a win rate of 65 to 70% of against hyper-aggro. Any other stuff like Steel Sapphire, for example, you want to play smartly around against the ping damage, same like against Steel Song, and you want to quest quite fast, because obviously against Sapphire Steel at a certain point you will come to the point where you can't challenge the guy anymore, because when the clockworks hit the table and the major characters are placed on the board, you just can focus on questing and not being a target, but challenging is then out of scope. So also kind of comparable to Steel Song, the way you play the deck. It's fine for me. I do like to play it. I would say it's again a 50-50 setup, and I'm happy to play against it. This would then, in my eyes, summarize the most important matchups for now. Or we could do Emerald Amethyst briefly. Emerald Amethyst is a good setup, because usually you are able to shoot the guy down with things that are important for him. Like you shoot down the Banzais, you just take care of the Elsas as soon as 5 ink gets available, so that your 1-drops are being banished before the Elsa can apply any pressure. And you can play around this kind of deck very much, because the key component of Amethyst works kind of similar to the way you play it, and then you just make sure that you handle the Emerald aspect smartly, like shooting down Merfolk, obviously, killing Banzai with 2 damage, being prepared for, pun intended, for a Cove so that you can remove the Cove quickly, stuff like that. Intuitive, it's a good matchup for the Broom service deck. All right, with these matchups summarized, I think I have explained the most important concepts of the deck, and I'm super interested in hearing your opinion, because obviously I'm playing in the German-European bubble with this deck, which is kind of becoming more and more famous, and I would be super interested to get your take on the Amethyst Steel approach in general, but especially obviously on this kind of brooms-oriented play with this sensational draw engine. Please try it out. It's a $175 US deck, so I would still call it budget line up to midline. So try it out, give me your feedback. It needs some training, but then becomes massive and immense fun, because this is a team deck. We don't have any star players in here. The whole deck works because of how these small characters interact together. And try it out. Give me your feedback. If you enjoyed the video, as I'm just starting off with English content, I'm super thankful if you leave a like and a comment. If you would if you would follow the channel, would be brilliant for me, just in order for me to understand if I do have an English audition and if I should do more English content. And with all that being said, thank you so much for your interest, and talk to you and see you very soon on this channel with new decks that I want to discuss with you.